Saitama has done it. For the first time since the battle with Cosmic Fear Garo, he has proven that he is the fist that goes against God. Oh, and by the way, the entire One Punch Man universe is totally broken. But don't worry, because I'm here to tell you why. However, it all starts when Blast shows up to save Sonic and Flashy Flash from these bum-ass ninjas. He solos them all without even breaking a sweat, which is when it's revealed that ever since Blast whooped his ass, Empty Void, the ninja village leader, has been grinding and going through physical enhancement procedures for 15 years and is now ready to wreak havoc upon the world in God's name. Bro's kill count throughout history is in the 6 figures, yet is too pussy to take on Blast himself, as he waits for his lackeys to deliver his best friend's head to them directly. Yeah, like that was ever gonna happen. But hey, Blast sees the funny side of it, so he decides to embark upon a little bit of tomfoolery, trolling, you could say. Because just before turning up to fight these ninjas, he took a visit to their leader just to find that his ass was already cooked, and by none other than my goat, the Caped Baldy. Just like in the webcomic, Saitama whooped his ass off screen in one shot. Yep, we spent like nearly 2 years redoing the Ninja Village arc over and over just for Murata to go down the same route as the webcomic. However, don't worry, because he is still cooking, as Saitama has just changed the trajectory of the One Punch Man story forever with this one singular hit, which Blast takes the ninjas to see. And let's just take a second to remember, shall we, just how powerful this guy is, or at least was. Empty Void was blessed with God's power and could literally cut through the reality of the multiverse, all because whilst being a vessel for God himself already, he also absorbed the cosmic energy radiating from Garo after his defeat to Saitama. And keep in mind, Blast confirmed that he and Void were equals before even accepting God's power and before becoming a multiversal entity, as Void could see every version of the universe and instantly slice through it. Then there's Saitama, the natural counter to literally anything God touches. And that's now why Blast believes that Saitama is the key to stopping God's plan, going on to actually recruit his ass. Yes, you heard that right, recruit him. Blast has finally admitted that God simply cannot be defeated without Saitama's help, but more on that in just a moment, because you might be wondering why all of this stuff I mentioned before is no longer canon. Well, whilst no official reason has been dropped for the redraws, let's be real, we all know what's going on here. Yusuke Murata is him, but because of that, he's also his own worst enemy. The man is a god tier artist who drops heat every single chapter, yet he still looks at his work like, nah, you know what, I can do better than this. It does mean that following the One Punch Man universe can become a little bit confusing. For example, those back in the day will remember when Saitama vs Garo ended like this. But then Murata thought, actually, you know what, let me just redraw this and create one of the most legendary fights in the history of the medium, giving us the Cosmic Garo fight. And so yeah, sometimes these redraws can work out really well. So let's see if that's the case this time. Because all of these ninjas who've had their asses handed to them by Saitama are in for one heck of a surprise for what comes next, as 2 huge monsters break through a dimensional rift in time and space. They are God's pets. Yep, seriously. They are God's very own guard dogs, essentially, his divine beasts. And they aren't the only 2, as we will see Saitama face one in just a little bit. Nonetheless, this big tiger and big turtle are based on the 4 holy beasts, aka the OG elemental guardians that literally ran the ancient spiritual world. In this case, we've got Byakko, the white tiger of the west, and Genbu, the black tortoise snake. They are legendary creatures from ancient Chinese stories, with 4 in total believed to guard the 4 main directions: north, south, east, and west. Now, how did they break through this dimensional barrier? Well, remember, we know that when Blast and his crew aren't locked the fuck in, that God begins to break free from his seal. We saw this happen in the battle between Garo and Saitama, where their power was so insane that Earth's gravitational field went haywire haywire, creating a spatial tear that he tried to take advantage of. Nonetheless, there is one pet even stronger than God's, and that's the one who belongs to the fist that went against God, Rover. Despite being so much smaller than he was in his prime, Bro's hyper beam is enough to defend the city from these divine beasts and lessen the impact, as Blast creates a force field of his own. Now, these dragon or above level threats unleashing a Kamehameha means absolutely nothing to the caped Baldy, who thought that the entire thing was merely them barking. Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
But right before Bro knocks some sense into these pets like he did to Rover all that time ago, a mysterious mist begins to appear from the crater that Saitama sent Void into. A smoke which Blast recognizes from the time Garou was freed from being God's avatar by the Baldy. And so, yes, you know what this means. After all of these redraws, Void is now a good guy.
What?
Together with Blast, they one-shot both divine beasts, impressing even Saitama, who says that he was right to leave it to the professionals. Now, how did Void just suddenly break free from God's manipulation? Well, as I've been saying all this time, it comes down to Saitama, the fist that went against God. Let me explain. You see, God turned Earth from a completely dead rock into a planet full of evolving species because he wanted to build a system where he could slowly manipulate humans into freeing him by guiding their evolution. Over time, he made sure that humanity would keep growing and keep advancing, but never without struggle. He wanted them to crave more power, to fight monsters, and to develop desires that he could take advantage of. This is why he gives powers to monsters. He's tempting people who are desperate, angry, or full of hatred, amplifying these emotions, turning them into his weapon, all by highlighting their flaws. Something which Void actually pointed out. I mean, just look at Garou. God preyed on his flaw, which was to seek out absolute evil, disregarding what was important to him along the way. Thus, God may well give you power, but it comes at a phenomenal cost: the surrender of oneself, your free will. But here is where it ties back to Saitama. Dr. Genus explained in chapter 88 that every human has something called a limiter installed upon them by God to prevent you from evolving too fast or becoming too powerful on your own. Psychos also talks about this. She had a vision of how all of humanity was being guided from the very beginning. She even sees Adam and Eve being manipulated by a snake that looks just a lot like Orochi, and that is no accident. It is a sign that God has been there all from the very beginning, using people's emotions and desires to move humanity closer to his end goal. When someone breaks their limiter the wrong way, like Garou did for example, they lose control. Their bodies mutate, their minds fall apart, and they turn into monsters. But Saitama, he did it the right way. No shortcuts, no special powers, just 3 years of insane discipline, training, pain, and pushing himself to the brink of death. And that is how he broke his limiter naturally. Thus, where God twists people by feeding into their flaws, Saitama embodies something purer, a human being who doesn't break under pressure and doesn't change for power or seek validation. I mean, remember, he is a hero for fun after all. Every punch from Saitama reminds others of their humanity and the fact that your flaws don't define you, it's how you confront them that does. Which would have fit perfectly into the previous version of this arc, if I'm honest, before the redraws, where all the research into demonsterization discovered that a person's humanity and psychological state was the key to fixing them. But oh well, I guess. All Blast cares about is that his best bud is back to normal again, as he rushes in to comfort him. Likewise with Sonic, who just so happens to lead with his blade first. Nonetheless, the two move faster than the eyes can see, but that is nothing for Blast, who's able to step between them with pinpoint precision and stop both their blades with his fingertips. And it's here that he reveals that the horrible life the Ninja Village had these kids living was merely due to God. Void never intended for such a grueling regime to be built. Thus, Void's flaws of untrustworthiness and greed spilled over into his ninja disciples, except for Sonic and Flash. This is because, whilst they would hate to admit it, they are great examples of the ideology Saitama preaches. They are are genuine heroes. We even see it in how Sonic tells the ninjas to live life as they please by training hard. That right there is the difference. When the ninjas were under Void, aka God's control, they weren't training for themselves, but for God's plan. Whereas now, Sonic is telling them to train for their own lives, to live their own lives. Unfortunately though, they are all simps for strength still and can't help but gravitate to the strongest person in the room. And so when Saitama recommends something as completely ridiculous as strength training, as if that would help them catch up to these god tier characters, they can't help but kind of shut up and listen. Nonetheless, with Void ready to now return to the front lines in this war against God, the ninjas can't just sit by and wait. They have to do something. They have to defeat this divine being that was manipulating them. And so they tried to elect a new leader, but yeah, that goes about as well as you'd have expected it to, really. Thus, even if they don't believe his training methods, they turn their attention towards the caped baldy. All because, as I said, Saitama's fist does what it always does. It helped them see the flaws in their ways of life. Thus, they join the baldy's growing harem. But that is not all. Blast finally tells Saitama that he's him. He accepts that he's stronger than he is, making Saitama, whilst unofficially, the #1 highest ranked hero in the world, fitting into My Mask's desire to make him the best superhero and the face of them all, something the next arc should delve into, as long as Murata doesn't redraw all this again. Regardless, Saitama tells Blast that he'll have a cuppa ready for him when it's time to face God once and for all, which, is it just me, guys, or do you feel like we've taken a massive leap towards endgame territory here, despite having tons of webcomic material left to cover? I don't know, let me know down below. Nonetheless, as Blast and Void teleport away together to the dimension in between time and space, they are met with a horrifying sight: the Kirin. Another one of God's divine beasts. Even Void's like, damn Blast, you actually killed that thing? However, that's not true. As Blast says, it's obvious who really did this: Saitama. And let me tell you, right, this is crazy. You see, the Kirin is a mythical creature so rare and pure that it is believed to be a sign of the arrival of a great leader or wise man. And it just so happened to appear before Saitama of all people. And going by everything we've explored today regarding what Saitama symbolizes in the war against God, that makes sense. In fact, the Kirin is thought to be so gentle that it doesn't even hurt the tiniest of bugs. Sound familiar? Likewise though, the Kirin is also stated to be the most divine and powerful beast of them all, where if evil is present, it will burn it away. Just like Saitama, who one-shots this Kirin sent by God straight back to the Shadow Realm. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and ding that notification bell. And whilst you're at it, you may as well enjoy more peak fiction by clicking this video on your screen right now.